Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time for the quarterback and tight end rankings video for Week 7 of the Fantasy Football NFL season. So, excited about that. I think the quarterbacks this week are, confidence rating in the rankings pretty high. I'm sure there'll be a couple of tough questions, but overall, I think a lot of it's kind of easy. A surprise or two in there as well. So we'll get those to those shortly. Before we do the quarterbacks and the tight ends, we do need to recap how we did with the loves and the fades for the quarterback position. We're talking 2 weeks ago because I missed rankings last week due to a hurricane coming through the area. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Where I'm at specifically, other people that could be different around Florida. But got lucky here. And so 2 weeks ago, I faded. I faded Andy Dalton. That was a really good fade. He finished as the quarterback 21. I loved Justin Fields. He was the quarterback 15 on the week. You might say that was a complete failure. I actually gave myself half credit here because my analysis was absolutely spot on. I mean, full credit on the analysis of the love of Justin Fields. I was actually lower than him on the experts. Compared to the experts, I mean, the ECR, the expert consensus ranking, was higher on Justin Fields despite the fact that I said that I loved him. As I recall, I prevented several folks from starting him over the guys, the likes of a Baker Mayfield, the Geno Smiths of the world. So I loved him, but I was relatively, nuanced about how much I loved him at least, and the fact that he didn't quite totally come through. I think it fit basically where I had him. So we'll see how I do this week with my loves fades. Overall, a couple weeks ago I did really good, so I'm glad that I'm able to recap a good week from 2 weeks ago instead of the opposite. With that being said, on the screen you are seeing my rankings. We're going to go through them in tiers on this video very shortly, but you're also seeing my projections. There's a lower end to the projection, there's a higher end to the projection. What this is the expected range is anywhere in between there. About 66% of the time, about 2/3 of the time, these players are going to finish within that expected range. Otherwise, they'll finish outside of it. One way we can help determine if they're going to finish outside of it on the higher end, have a boom game, is through this little thing that I have highlighted here, this player temperature gauge. This is just a measure of some of the outside factors to determine whether the game is situated in such a way that this player has a good chance of having a big game or a bad game. In all these cases, red is good, white is neutral, blue is bad. You can check these rankings out on the website, www.theFFforge.com, where you can also see a simpler version if you just want to see this. If all you want to see is the rankings, there you go. Much easier to look at in general, but this is a nice tool for you to help decide, especially if you're looking for ceilings, floors, boom ability versus bust potential, etc. You get all those little tools in this chart. So once again, available on the website. Links are down in the description to all of the positions, and I also go live for start sit questions where I'll have updated rankings because things do change throughout the week, and then the rankings get updated. And I just put them right up on the screen while I sit here live on Thursday, 2 hours prior to kickoff, about 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am live here on YouTube for any of your start sit questions on Thursday. Saturday, same time, 6:30 p.m., and that can go for 4+ hours depending on how busy it is. That's what it happened last Saturday. Sundays, mornings, prior to kickoff of the noon slate of games. That is important this time of the year to make sure I state I am available as well for all of your start sit questions. So come visit me anytime of those times, and let's just get these quarterbacks knocked out here. Like I said, I don't think I need to explain too much of this. So this first tier are the must-starts. I mean, you're not sitting Lamar Jackson or Jayden Daniels at this point in the season based on what they've done, especially given the opponents that they're facing going up against Tampa Bay, Carolina, respectively, there for Lamar and Jayden Daniels. That's going to bring us on to this second tier, which covers my quarterbacks 3 through, I think it's a pretty big tier, 3 through 10 there, starting off with Baker Mayfield, followed by Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, and Brock Purdy here. Interesting, CJ Stroud, that ceiling kind of in the expected range, the higher end of the expected range, quite low here. I'm not sure exactly what's causing that. Very interesting, but against Green Bay here this week, personally, just using my own brain, I'm pretty optimistic about that being a potentially big game. Of course, without Nico Collins, might hurt a little bit, but I think they've still got enough weapons to move the ball against Green Bay. And once again, what should be a back and forth game, I think. And for that reason, we love Jordan Love up here. Baker Mayfield going up against Baltimore. Not the pass defense that they've been in the past, and Tampa Bay, a very good passing offense. A little bit of tougher matchups here, not higher upside matchups for Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen right in the middle. And for that reason, if you're shooting for a ceiling over these guys, I'm fine with starting Sam Darnold over them. Go right ahead. Brock Purdy, Kansas City, tougher matchup, but look at that. He's been playing really, really well this year. They've got weapons as well that any defense, they can find a way to move the ball. So we'll see if they have the running backs in order, but otherwise, still that pass game should be all right. That's going to bring us on to this next tier of this little tier of quarterbacks before we get into another big tier, I believe. Quarterback 11, I have Geno Smith, just limited upside because of performance so far, but I do think that there's still a chance that he has a big game. Jared Goff, definite chance that he has a big game against Minnesota. They can be a frustrating defense, but generally speaking, quarterbacks, wide receivers have been putting up some fantasy points against them, despite the fact that it's frustrating for these quarterbacks going up against this defense. And Kyler Murray going up against the Los Angeles Chargers, a little limited upside. Generally speaking, against the Chargers is not a matchup that I get too excited about this season. You can see the matchup gauge, not too excited about that either. So, yeah, I'm worried about Kyler Murray, but we'll give him a chance. We'll give him a chance to a certain degree here over some of these guys. And surprise, surprise, my love of the week here at quarterback 14 is Drake May going up against Jacksonville. Yes, that has a lot to do with it. He also performed very well. He projects incredibly well here. Is this a ringing endorsement that you should go out and start Drake May this week? This might be a case of it's a little bit easier to rank someone than it is to actually start them. That's quite possible here. But you look at some of these names here, I think you might be willing to take the chance here against Jacksonville, because Jacksonville is the absolute single best quarterback matchup for fantasy football, for quarterbacks for fantasy football purposes. He looked okay in his start. He projects really incredibly well. I'm not dropping Patrick Mahomes in order to start Drake May this week, who we haven't seen in the rankings yet. But he might just pay it off if you do take a chance on him. And I'm here to say that, if you do, hey, you can blame it on me for giving him a love tag. Anthony Richardson right behind him. You can see very, very cold, not loving even in a decent matchup here against Miami. Factors are concerning for Anthony Richardson. He still projects really well. All the potential is there, but you're obviously going to be a little nervous about starting him. It hasn't been super pretty. Assuming he's back this week, there's a chance he's not. Trevor Lawrence going up against New England, fine there. Nothing to complain about. Justin Fields right behind that. There is some concern here for Fields, so he is my fade of the week. Right now, in terms of just talking NFL here, for this Pittsburgh coaching staff right now, it would be the perfect time to replace Justin Fields for now. See if Russell Wilson provides this offense with something more. And then you can still bring Justin Fields back later on in the season to take a second look at him if all is lost and whatnot like that. If, you're certain that Wilson is not going to be bringing you to the promised land, see if Justin Fields might have learned a little bit more sitting on that bench, watching, learning from Russell Wilson, which I think was the original plan here. So right now is your chance to go back to plan A, see how that works out, and then you can always come back to plan B happily, because Justin Fields has at least been managing fairly well on that side of the ball, but you'd like to be able to take some bigger steps with Justin Fields going forward, and he just needs to still continue to learn some things. If he is the starter this week, of course, is the only reason that we're going to fade him. If he is not the starter this week, then yeah, we're definitely fading him. You're not going to be starting him in that case. I suspect that the coaching this week for Justin Fields going up against a team like the New York Jets will be ultra conservative. Will be do not turn the ball over, do not take stupid chances, and they're going to shake his head, shaking baby syndrome style that into him all week if he's going to be the starter. And conservative game plans against a top 3 defense isn't exactly a recipe for a big game. So I'm not too optimistic about the upside here for Justin Fields. Just kind of what this says, I'm just neutrally You do your thing, Justin Fields. Give me 15 points is kind of what I'm thinking. Christian Kirk Cousins, not Christian Kirk, right behind that in this tier, going up against Seattle. It is what it is in terms of what he is fantasy-wise in this matchup and everything. So, maybe I'll move him up ahead of Fields here as the week goes along. I don't know yet. Fields still provides some upside there. My next quarterbacks 19 through 22 are Patrick Mahomes, Andy Dalton, Daniel Jones, Matt Stafford. So I think we have, enough reason to suspect that these guys could each have a good week for one reason or another, but they also might not, and they haven't been great for fantasy so far on the season. Bo Nix, in fact, has been better for fantasy than these guys. Look at this ceiling, the upper end of the potential for Bo Nix based on how he's performed so far this season. Aaron Rodgers going to be getting some people back, but Pittsburgh, Justin Herbert going up against Arizona, but that offense just isn't, very fantasy friendly. Deshaun Watson, Tyler Huntley, Will Levis in that next tier, and then finally Spencer Rattler, Aiden O'Connell. This isn't hating on Spencer Rattler, it's a really tough matchup against Denver, one of the best DSTs, so I'd much rather sit him if I can and not take a chance on that like I might with Drake May. There are the quarterbacks. Let's get on to the tight end position. All right, here we are with the tight ends. Once again, you can see, you just click on the little tight end rankings and you can see a little bit more easy to read kind of rankings here. Otherwise, you got the expected ranges, just like the other chart, and you can actually see a bit of, on the edge of your screen there, the key stating that, red is good, white is neutral, blue is bad for this. And that'll show itself as we reveal the rankings. But before we can reveal the rankings for this week 7, we do want to take a look back again at how I did with my starts, with my loves and my fades, my starts and my sits, in other words. And I went 2 for 2. I loved Travis Kelce 2 weeks ago. He ended up as the tight end 7 in week 5. And I faded Cole Kmet. He finished as the tight end 21 in week 5. It was a good tight end week, so Cole Kmet's week 21, tight end 21 finish is not as bad as it sounds, actually, but still, 2 for 2 there. And with that being said, I submit for the approval of the Midnight Society The Tale of Two Daltons. We'll see what kind of editing I did on that, but that is obviously a spoof, a take on the old show, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Are You Afraid of the Dark? So, week 7, rankings, tight ends. Starting off with my first tier. It's just a tight little tier of 4 tight ends, kicking off with George Kittle here at tight end 1, followed by Brock Bowers at tight end 2, Trey McBride, and Evan Ingram to kick this up. A newcomer, hasn't been healthy for long, but he's made an impression early on, and I was very high on him in the offseason, so nice to see him back and doing what I suspected he might be able to do. So, there we go. Those are our top 4. I don't think I need to do too much explaining, of course. I'm sure there will be some questions this week. Actually, I've already gotten one about Evan Ingram compared to, some of these other guys that you might have, like Kyle Pitts was the question here. I'm all in on Evan Ingram for now. And you can see the projections are quite nice for him as well. Right behind him, I do have Travis Kelce. Do expect him to be, consistently better for you now rest of season without Rashee Rice. And so not maybe what he once was, where he was the guaranteed tight end number 1 each and every week, but we're still liking him quite a bit here, and you can see the projections are already liking him too, and I didn't manipulate these at all, so that's still based on the entirety of the season. Sam Laporta is our tight end 6 here. You can see the projections do not love him, but the heating gauge likes him quite a bit. And going up against Minnesota, like I said for the running backs, I think that they'll be able to move the ball, get into the red zone and everything. So there will be opportunities, and I think that Sam Laporta could take advantage of that. Kyle Pitts going up against Seattle, nothing wrong there, projects nicely. And that's going to bring us on to my love of the week for the tight ends. And like I said, this is the tale of two Daltons, so I think you can figure out who I'm fading this week, given that I'm loving Dalton Schultz. Once again, Houston tight end going up against Green Bay this week. Without Nico Collins, last week, Dalton Schultz target share was at 28% of the targets. That ended up with a season-high 8 targets for him, and that was in a game where they won in a blowout win, 41-21. So you get a game against Green Bay where, Green Bay might even be the slight favorites here, And we're really expecting this to be a shootout type of situation, maybe even more passing. Maybe we're looking at 10 targets. And all that's great. But on top of that, the Green Bay Packers do not really have linebackers that are good in coverage. They've allowed the third most fantasy points to tight ends so far on the season. So that's an area that they can be taken advantage of. Pretty high up on Dalton Schultz this week, and I was able to get him off the waiver wire for a team where I needed him because my tight end Jake Ferguson is on bye. Tucker Kraft going up against Houston, and Pat Freiermuth will wrap this tier up going up against the New York Jets. That's going to bring us on to the rest. This next tier going from tight end 11 through 13. You see the top of the next tier here, but we'll just leave it like that. Dalton Kincaid, though, my tight end 11, is my fade. Going up against Tennessee, and that's a big factor here for the other Dalton. Tennessee is the worst tight end matchup so far this season, and it's not really close. Even the second worst matchup is still equally distant from them than they are from the third worst matchup. So, compared to the field and everything, it's really not close. And even second place is like a full point behind. They only allow 3.3 points on average to the tight end position fantasy points in half PPR. That's not a lot. I actually think that the addition of Amari Cooper could help to open things up for Dalton Kincaid looking season long here. But if you have the ability to sit Dalton Kincaid this week, then take that if you have the ability to do so. I will be playing him in a league. I'm not expecting much, but I'm hoping for something. It can always happen. A tight end, even just a touchdown, will get you into, tight end 15-ish territory some weeks. So, and we'll get you relatively close to most opponents. So, he's still a highly talented receiving tight end who could do something even in a very tough matchup. So I'm not sacrificing depth to bring somebody in unless there's really, one of these Dalton Schultz or something available there on the waiver wire. Zach Ertz, Mark Andrews will finish this tier up as my tight end 12 and 13. We saw Mark Andrews for the last 2 weeks starting to get a little bit more involved in the passing game, starting to trust that offensive line a little bit more, especially as that running attack has kind of taken over, even more. Against this Tampa Bay team, I don't know, does that revert some? That's possible. I'm not fully on board yet, but the tight ends aren't great as normal this week. So I'll play Zach Ertz over him, but after that, it's whatever. This is the next tier of tight ends, going from tight end 14 through 19 for me. Isaiah Likely, Hunter Henry, really good matchup against Jacksonville there for him. Cade Otton, David Njoku going up against Cincinnati. I think actually not a good tight end matchup, but I don't see why they couldn't be. And with Amari Cooper going out, there is a chance here for David Njoku. I'm just going to be patient and see what happens this week. Colby Parkinson, another guy I like quite a bit, projects really nicely here. You can see compared to a lot around him going up against Las Vegas. Might have to move him up in the rankings, but yeah, we'll see. And then TJ Hawkinson at my tight end 19. Coming back, going up against Detroit. Plenty of upside there, but what will is if he does come back this week? This was the hope that they were going to get him back this week. I don't know what the likelihood of that is actually, but this is where I would play him. Then you get tight ends 20 through 25, Noah Fant, Tyler Conklin, Mike Gesicki, Jonnu Smith, Juwan Johnson, Chig Okonkwo. Did I go over... I am not currently ranking Taysom Hill. And then Foster Moreau's in a tier of his own. Probably could not rank him, and that would be fine. But I did want to point out, it's kind of stupid here, and I guess I'm at fault for it too. Because I never did double check, but I believe Foster Moreau has more fantasy points than Juwan Johnson on the season. If not, it's very close. You can see from the projection, a little bit lower of a floor, but a higher ceiling here, which at this point in the tight end position is what you want to aim for, is that ceiling anyways. Rankers, have biases, and you got to keep your eyes out for these types of players. Juwan Johnson is somebody who gets, a bunch of love every year and really doesn't do anything with it. And you got to just, keep your eyes out for these types of things. I'm not saying that I'm not, part of that. Just keep an eye out for that. As a community, for some reason, Rankers just will not give Foster the love. He is currently ECR 36 and Juwan's like 20th. And once again, Foster Moreau, I believe, has actually outscored him on the season in fantasy. And he is the number one tight end on the roster for New Orleans. Taysom Hill is his own unique person. Somebody that Grant Calcaterra, I'm not too concerned about trying to play him or anything with A.J. Brown back. That's the back of Philadelphia, assuming that Dallas Goedert does not play this week. Grant Calcaterra is somebody who I'm just not overly excited about since the other weapons are back in that receiving room, because typically they just haven't utilized the tight end a whole lot while they've been fully healthy. And Taysom Hill would, get ranked fairly nicely if he is back with that ceiling. Like I said, at a certain point, all you want to aim for is the ceiling. So, that might be right about here, right around tight end 20 or so. At the very least, that I would get him, and I totally understand if you want to start him over anybody, including Isaiah Likely. There you go. That is it for the tight end rankings. That was it for the quarterback rankings. Once again, these are all up on the website. Links down in the description. Peace out. I've taken up enough of your time today. Hope to see you when I go live for your Start Sit questions. Bye-bye.